All right, joining me on today's The Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen episode, I have a really good friend of mine that it's kind of funny because I watched his tape as part of my job for scouting, prospects and trying to find out who works best to go to the Rams. I came across this guy out of Syracuse, and his name is Cameron Lynch. He's actually with us today. But what's weird, and this is how life is sometimes, I guess not for everybody, but for me, I ended up really liking this player right here and thought, I was like, I think he'll make the Rams 53-man roster. And then time goes on and we're doing a podcast together. So it's a weird story. But it's cool. And I never take that for granted because I do remember it like it was yesterday. You watching the film, you rocking, the orange and blue. And I'm like, now, yeah, we're friends. Like we hung out earlier this year. We went to a Yankee spring training game. I got to meet your wife. So Cam, welcome aboard, my friend. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad I was able to get you on here.
Yeah, man, it's nice to be at the lounge, in the lounge with Jake Ellenbogen. It's really cool to see your journey. I mean, like you mentioned, we first started podcasting with, Believe back in like maybe 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
But then the journey started beforehand, like you said, when you reached out to the Rams, like, hey, can I interview Cam? And they turned it down, but the universe was like, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to be talking to each other a lot more often. So it's really cool to podcast with you, talk football, but then, take it down a notch a little bit from the sports side, go on the more personal side in the lounge. So thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, of course, man. And this is nothing new for us, but obviously we're sharing this to everyone else. I mean, we've had plenty of, heart-to-heart conversations. Cam has been huge, in my opinion, just for like my development since, I've been older than 25. Like I've learned a lot of lessons from you, just being able to go to you and you give me advice. And so I need to establish this is one of the best people I know, period, exclamation point, end of sentence. But yeah, retired NFL linebacker. He played from 2015 to 2018 with the Rams, the Bucks. And look, you're really well respected among the Rams fans because obviously the work we did, with Believe in Rams and even Off the Edge, because we had a lot of people that watched that as well. But you were a fan favorite, and this is how it works with the Rams. I can't speak for any other team, but covering the Rams is like, if you're one of those guys that is kind of the undrafted, oh, he's exciting, I'm going to watch him in preseason or training camp, you could become a fan favorite. And people liked Cameron Lynch. They just did. Yeah. So, of course. And then you go to the Buccaneers, and, of course, people like Cameron Lynch there as well. And we're going to, get all into that. But first off, how are things, my guy? What's new with you? My old, we still host shows here or there, but my old co-host of Believe in Rams, we'll just say that.
Yeah, say that. Yeah, I know we do some stuff with Bleacher Report as well, so looking forward to that once the season kicks off. But man, all is well here in Tampa. Enjoying the summer, but like not enjoying the heat as much. Looking forward to getting back to Los Angeles, where the Rams fans are. Here we're in Buccaneer County, but looking forward to get back to LA, when things cool down a little bit. And man, just, living the married life, you know what I mean? Handling business, doing the 9-to-5 stuff, while also jumping into real estate. And so it's been a great journey. What I'm starting to realize, man, is rents due every day, B. Like in relationship, with my partner, and then also too, just in the real estate space. But man, things are going well. Waking up healthy each day, and that's all I can pray for. How about you, Jake, man? What's life like on your end?
Life's good, man. Can't complain, just grinding, but also, I took a little bit of a step back, recently, and just enjoying, hey, I put that out. I don't need to put something out immediately after. I can just enjoy myself. It's kind of the dead period, so there's no excuse for me to be like, boom, 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 So after the draft,
how's baseball going, Jake? Because I've been watching. I know you're a big Yankees guy. We went to the Yankees game. I'm from LA, so like I like the Dodgers. I like Shohei Ohtani. I know I see some of your tweets come out, about Shohei and Aaron Judge. How's the baseball life treating you?
Well, if you had asked me that about a week or two ago, I would have been like, it's great. No, all jokes aside, the show's going extremely well. There's always viewers, and it's unlike, I'm going to say this, it's unlike football, because when the Rams lose, people do not tune in. When the Yankees lose, people can't wait to tune in and just absolutely crap on the Yankees. So it's kind of frustrating that as we are recording this on a Wednesday, they've gone 29 straight innings without scoring. But but they've had a good year up to this point, and obviously it's 162 games, so they'll move forward. But yeah, it's been good, and I really have just been trying to get this thing going, and getting, like, the entire goal of this show was to get cool people on the show. That's it. People I thought were cool that had stories to tell. And looking at you, we'll start from the beginning. What was your childhood like, Cam?
Yeah, childhood was starting California. You know what I mean? So it wasn't necessarily a Rams fan growing up, because the Rams were in St. Louis. And thankfully, I was a part of the team that started in St. Louis and then made that transition over to Los Angeles. But it was great. Growing up in Los Angeles, the Long Beach, California area, the Orange County area. Transitioned to Atlanta, Georgia. When I was growing up, Jake, I was too heavy to play football in California. They had a weight limit. So they were like, all right, guy, you got to go down south. You know what I mean? Yeah. and go play there. So my dad lives in Houston, Texas. So that's where I got my start in Houston. We talk about heat. That's where the real heat is, man. But when I was about 7 or so, started playing down there in the summers. And then I would go to Atlanta where mom and grandma were, and started playing down there as well. But life was great. Grew up I have a half sister. So grew up, with my mom as the only child. And then my sister came along and life got way better. But life was great. Went to my middle school and high school out in Atlanta, Georgia, or Gwinnett County, Brookwood High School out there. I think you talk about some of like the better moments of childhood really was on the football field. Also playing video games. I'm a big gamer. I enjoy it. Hey. And then also, anime, watching Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon and stuff like that. So, life was great. I feel blessed. And I think now, just reflecting on how life went, I want to return the favor. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to mentorship, when it comes to leaning into the community, whether that be the football community or just my local community, really tapping in there. But yeah, life was great growing up, man. Can't complain.
Love that, man. It's funny, obviously we're going in timeline order, but I just want to point out, I've never seen, because I've interviewed so many former players before, right? Not so many that I had this, familiarity and connection with, but a ton. The one thing I always noticed about you is how you have this level of humility, where you see the human before the football player. You see the human before the actor and the actress. You see a human before, whatever, insert whatever. And I always thought that was fascinating. And I honestly try to strive to be like that, because it does, you kind of get lost in the sauce. But you've said it so many times on our show, obviously it sucks what he's going through, but also the human element of it. And I feel like you've always done a really good job of having that, because Cam, I'll tell you, that is not a common trait where people always see the human element in every single situation. So that's kind of while you were talking about that was kind of a thing that popped in my head. But looking at, your high school career, you just told me that you were being, off air, so you guys aren't going crazy. We didn't talk about this yet. You just told me that you're being inducted in their Hall of Fame July 31st. So first off, epic right there. Congratulations. Big time.
Thank you.
What is that like? I cannot imagine my high school inducting me into the Hall of Fame. I don't think about my high school, but it's really cool that you do. And, clearly you made a big mark because you made it to the NFL. We're going to talk about, of course, the media background as well. And you're just killing it as a human being. So obviously it's a great, in my opinion, you know, it's a great example of who to be for these young high schoolers when they look up and they see the people that went here, not just like, oh yeah, this guy paid a lot of money to us and, you know, his dad was a booster or whatever. Like, you paved the way a little bit. So yeah, well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's a great honor. I opened up the letter was maybe a couple weeks ago, and it's a great honor. I'm actually, you talk about becoming a great human and what that looks like. I realize reading does a lot for me when it comes to that, and so I have a book, one of my favorite books, I want to share with you all. The cover's ripped off, so please excuse me. I did not chew it off or anything like that. It's just from using it so much. But it's called Fierce Conversations. By Susan Scott. And so it's a really good book. And within the book, I have my letter of induction. And, you know, whenever I take my time to read, you see there's like Brookwood Football Hall of Fame. And so, oh man, I threw my whole address on there. So please don't send me letters or pull up to the crib. But, you know, whenever I read, I keep that as a bookmarker, you know, because it's a good reminder like, hey, you know, where have you been before, right? And then where are you going and what does that look like? And what type of legacy do you want to leave? And so, you know, being inducted to the Hall of Fame is amazing. I haven't really made that public. So I was like, let's use the lounge to share this information. So thank you, Jake, for sharing that with the world. And yeah, it's been awesome. I'm actually figuring out what to say during my speech coming up in July. And so each day is a day for me to take notes and be like, oh, okay, I can add this and I can add that. And one of the things that Carmelo Anthony, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, I listened to his recent episode with was Ryan Coogler, and he talked about like, what was your 7 p.m. moment? And I guess 7 p.m. moment was when you locked in and when you changed the game for your career, right? I guess 7 p.m. was when Carmelo locked in before 8:30 tip off, whatever that is. But what was that moment that changed the game in your career? And for me, Jake, it was at Brookwood High School, but it was the youth football program. And there's a picture in 8th grade of us at the goal line. And we're trying to stop this running back from South Gwinnett High School, is where Lou Will went to high school at. And we're trying to stop this running back, Jake. And this guy, and like I said, we're in 8th grade, and he's about 230. Jake, this guy, he's huge. And it's a lineman playing fullback. And so there's a picture of me and my other linebacker, and we're like squaring up. We see him in the hole. And the other linebacker takes off. We both take off at the same time, but the other linebacker is a little bit quicker than me, takes off and strikes him. And then I'm right there following up. And that was my 7 p.m. moment where it was like, hey, it's fight or flight, right? You can run from this contact, from this 230-pound, 15-year-old, or you can fight and you can go and take it head on. And so that was like my 7 p.m. moment where I realized like football was a thing for me. And so taking on those hits, tackling adversity, whatever that is in life, Brookwood in the high school, in the middle school youth football program, showed me, you know, what I won't say what my future was, but what I wanted to do in life. So I'm grateful to Brookwood for that. The coaching staff there, you know, my mom, my grandma, my pops, so really just guiding me to do what I was meant to do, which was play football. And now, like you mentioned, able to share stories around it and being in the media has been great. And so Brookwood gave me that start. So shout out to Brookwood, inducted me to the Hall of Fame with some other great athletes as well.
I love it. And it's well-deserved. And just, this is the guy you root for. All right. I don't know, you know, everybody that you root for. I don't have the guide on that. I haven't met everybody in the world. There's probably plenty, but I know for a fact this right here is the guy that you root for. So
appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. It's just been so fun to obviously get to know you, and you know, to your point about, you know, being a part of this sport, it's always been cool to kind of be like, yeah, so like, what'd you think about this? Because like I watch at home. I'm not, and you're like, man, special teams, it is a nonstop car crash. That's what you told me. The first thing you told me, like, there's always those bits and pieces, and that's why experience is everything. And we always talk about experience in sports because it matters, but experiences in life matter too. Like, obviously, like, you're a little bit older than me, so like you're able to be like, yeah, like, so this, like, I went through this, like, I would make that mistake, or, oh, I did this, I would recommend this. Like, it's cool, you know? But speaking of experiences, you end up going to play football at Syracuse, of all places. You're in California, you're in Georgia, you're in Texas, but you're like, you know what? You know where I want to go? New York. What made you decide to play football there? It worked out, clearly.
It worked out. Yeah. Upstate New York, not far from you. I think what brought me there was the richness in history. You got Floyd Little, Ernie Davis. You got some of the best players to play football came from that school. And so Floyd Little, he worked in the office at Syracuse, rest in peace. But he worked at Syracuse. And so he was a great mentor of mine, someone to show me the ropes. He was undersized, whatever you want to call it, but he found a way to make it through. And so that was one of the pieces. Having Floyd Little there was a big deal. And then second to that was just the culture in upstate New York. When I took my official visit, it was snowing cats and dogs. Like it was brutal. But just the people that I came across when I was at Syracuse, the culture, the people, I was like, this is familiar. And a lot of times it was a culture shock too, Jake, right? Because you said coming from LA to Georgia, pops in Houston, but then jumping up to New York, it was definitely a culture shock. And one thing I realized is people in New York, they give it to you straight. You know what I mean? Straight shot, no chaser. In California, it's a little bit different. A lot of chaser, a little less, a little shot in there. But that's what I really liked. That people were straightforward out there in New York. And then people from down south, kids from Miami were coming up to play at Syracuse. When I saw some of the best players in Miami, from Miami Central High School who won the 5A state championship, and they were coming up to Syracuse to play some football, I'm like, oh, okay, we could do something with this. And so that was another thing. And then going back to the people, Jake, like some of the people that were in my wedding, my groomsmen, they all came from Syracuse College. And so, I'm grateful for Q's kind of introducing me to the people who would be in my life forever. And so, if I were to do it, I would do it again any time. If even right now they were like, hey, you get a chance to have NIL, whatever that looks like, take me to Syracuse. Fran Brown is doing a good job up at the university. He's really looking to build the human first and then the athlete. So that was one thing that, that's one thing that would draw me back to Syracuse. But yeah, man, it's the people, the culture that really drew me to Syracuse. And then good football, man. We were in the Big East at one point and then made our way to the ACC, which is great because we would go play the Florida States, the Georgia Techs down, by the crib. So even though we got blown out by both of those teams, Jake, by like 50-something points, playing Clemson and Death Valley, like those experiences were great and wouldn't change it for the world.
No, I absolutely love that. And I love it because it's kind of like the whole, when people talk about like Michael Jordan, and I'm not saying that you're Michael Jordan, so don't get it twisted, but but no, he went to, school at North Carolina, but they always said, he made his home in Chicago. He didn't have to go and play in North Carolina. He didn't have to play in Carolina when he got to the NBA, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's always been kind of a respect factor for somebody who can make their home a home from another home. And that's certainly what you did because Tampa and then you have LA. I know you had California background, but LA, Tampa, Texas, Georgia, Syracuse, there's like all these different places. And it's like, that's pretty cool. Like you've established yourself across this country in a sense. You're just missing like way out there with like what, like Montana and Seattle. But I mean, for the most part, you kind of established yourself kind of all over the map, and that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. So props to you on that. But you go undrafted. I kind of want to go through your mind here, because there are people that look at it like people that go undrafted, they kind of look at it like it's the end of the world. I feel like it's gotten better over the course of time because we've had people like you, we've had, people like Kurt Warner, right? We've seen undrafted, become a sensation. We've now seen that, but it is one of those things that can be demoralizing to not be drafted. And you have all these players and whether it's right to say this or wrong, you're at least better than one of the guys that were drafted than you on draft night. So what was that process where you're playing at Syracuse and the NFL starts getting closer and closer to you and you start getting put in mock drafts, right? Simple things like that, where if you were like to Google yourself, I don't know if you did this, but if you were to Google yourself, your name, you would just pop up on somebody's just random big board. Like, be like, I want Cam Lynch out of Syracuse. Be like, oh, I'm just at home, just maybe I'm playing video games or drinking some tea, and somebody is literally making an article about me saying they want me to be on their team. What was that like?
Yeah, it was cool. One of the moments that I think of as you were speaking, I will say it was great to have great leaders in front of me. For an example, Marquise Sproul got drafted to the Falcons, played linebacker. He was 6'2", ran like a 4.4, like anything you think of in a linebacker, he was that. And so I had great people in front of me to kind of set the way. For me, you know, like I said, I was undrafted, undersized, anything you can think of. And one of the first articles that came out that I was like, oh, okay, this could be a thing, was the top 10 freak athlete list. And one of the things, even though I was undersized, one thing I prided myself on was, hey, when I'm in the weight room, I'm lifting heavier than everyone, right? Benching, squatting, cleaning, jumping, whatever it is, I'm gonna outwork people. When it came to speed, right, that wasn't necessarily my forte. I was more quick than fast. And so that's something I had to work on when I got to the NFL because, you know, playing special teams, man, it was like a track meet. You know, we're running all over the place. But you know, when I saw an article come out like, hey, top 10 freak athlete list, and you got your Todd Gurley's there, you got other great athletes on that list. I'm like, okay, no matter what happens in the NFL, I can figure this thing out. And then also, I was an engineer major for 2 years, mechanical engineer major for 2 years in college. And so I prided myself on just my mind, right? How can I challenge myself and separate myself from the competition or from my other classmates? And so when it came to the playbook, when it came to knowing the people in the building, when it came to, you talk about the human aspect, that's the third thing, is just the human aspect. I make sure I talk to the janitor, make sure I talk to the front office, front desk person, or whoever it was, treated them with respect. And I realized that even if I did go undrafted, I have a body of work that I can provide to whatever team that wants me. And so thankfully, the Rams in St. Louis, they brought me on. And the Buccaneers did as well. And I flipped back and forth between both. And I just think the things that I mentioned, the hard work, you know, the community service, the human part of what I brought to the table was valuable. And those are things that I keep with me after retirement. And so, yeah, like going back to your question, it was strange, you know, having some articles written about me. But I did know that no matter what was said, the work that I put in, you know, that's something that no one can write about, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember you get picked up by the Rams, and I'm watching all the tape and everything on everybody they picked up, and I was like, oh, yeah, there's some cool players. I was in right away on your game, and it's funny you say, you know, you were like quicker than fast, but like the film, and this is where I feel like the 40 time doesn't tell a full story, because people also forget 40 time. When is a linebacker running 40 yards in a straight line? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
unless it's kickoff.
Very
yeah,
rarely.
You're not. It's not happening. Yeah.
So I'm watching the tape and I'm like, I thought you were, you know, you looked like a 4.5. I couldn't see the difference between you and Deion Jones at the time, who was like the gold standard of like incredibly athletic linebacker, new age. And so that was like the thing that really caught my eye. But then another thing is the attention to detail. Like, you weren't an ankle biter. And believe it or not, there are a lot of linebackers that do not have form tackling, which is wild to me, but it exists. And you didn't have that issue. And you were always trying to punch the ball out, but you were securing the tackle before you did, which I always thought was like, again, attention to detail. So I ended up writing that article about you, which I don't know if you found it. We did end up chatting a little bit. And then you're like, yeah, so reach out to this dude and then we'll see if we can do something. I'd love to, but I got to get permission from this guy. And then, yeah, that went south as we kind of talked about, but shocker. But no, you know, it was obviously really fun to watch you on the Rams. And then I did watch you on the Bucks. Because I liked your game, and you know, I feel like it's really cool because even still, like you said, you went back and forth. It's like you still have familiarity with some guys that ended up going on to like be a part of that Super Bowl team, right, with the Rams, and Super Bowl team with the Bucks,
Yeah.
right? So it's really cool because like you were around some huge names. But let's start with the Rams time. How does that compare to the Buccaneers? Because at the time, I feel like it's now people forget, but that was not LA. That was St. Louis, where you played the majority with the Rams. You did come back and play for the LA Rams, but St. Louis versus Tampa and just kind of like the organization at that point, what were the differences and maybe similarities between the two?
Yeah. Tampa and St. Louis, they were different. Even St. Louis and LA were different. I'll walk through my experience in St. Louis. St. Louis, the practice facility was in Earth City, Missouri. And so it was the best start that I could have had, because if I started off in LA, then I would have been running up and down the coast, down PCH, trying to see family and friends. And so that was a great start. The only thing that was going on in St. Louis really was the St. Louis Cardinals, which, that ballpark is amazing. Spending time down there was great. And then there was like a casino. Other than that, there was not much going on in St. Louis. Like I said, for a rookie, being 21 years old, like the best start I could have had. Was able to stay focused. And then going out to LA, things definitely things changed, right? When it came to the Rams. So with that, we had Hard Knocks come out. So that was my first experience with Hard Knocks. They were covering our camp down in Irvine, and so that was a new experience because we didn't really have like a home or a hub. So we were doing a lot of things kind of a la carte. We're doing things here and then going up there and doing different things. So that was cool. I know the Rams are building a nice facility, a nice home for themselves, which is great, but it took them a while. At first, for a while, the LA Rams, they were doing a lot of the meetings outside of and not say cubicles, but what do you call it? Different a structure that you could move and pick, kind of like outside of school, Jake. Like in school where you have your classes, and outside those classes you kind of have like those mobile homes, whatever it is.
They're like trailers, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trailers. So that's where the Rams are doing a lot of their meetings and stuff were out of trailers essentially. So everything was kind of shaped and formed to kind of get things done, which was okay. The food was great at the Rams. I would say that was some of the better food that I've had at the Rams. They had some great chefs there. And then transitioning to the Buccaneers, totally different ball game. Just the heat in general, right? Like you're getting out there and it's hot. It reminded me of playing back in Atlanta, where you're, Pedialyte, pineapple juice, like all the things just to stay hydrated throughout the day. So that was a different experience. Of course, the facilities, when I first came to the Buccaneers, the facilities, it wasn't great, right? Like I think I remember our stadium after games, the showers were cold. Like we had once we started winning games, though, they started changing that heat up a little bit, started cranking it up. They made us a new facility before games, so that was cool. And things adjusted nicely. So I would say, starting off with the Rams, things facility-wise, things kind of, I don't say decline, but weren't as nice as where they started. And the Buccaneers, the facilities weren't as great, but then started to get better as we won some games. So that's what I would say the difference was there. I would say in St. Louis, the food was a lot better though. The food was really tasty. They really did a really good job with like the barbecue, of course, being in St. Louis, and then going to LA, you have your avocado toast and your, ginger shots and stuff. So the food was decent. Getting to the Buccaneers, I don't say the food was bad. It just wasn't as good as it was in Tampa. And then I would say teammate wise, my teammates with the Rams, I think I stay connected with them a little bit more than I do the teammates with the Buccaneers. They were all great. I actually saw Ali Marpet at an NFLPA meeting last night, but I think I'm a little bit closer to the teammates at the Rams than the Buccaneers. So those are kind of my three things: food, facility, and friends. I think the Rams did a great job overall of kind of keeping all that at a high level.
Yeah, it's cool. I remember you were part of the Todd Gurley class, so yeah. I remember that. And then I think was Was Hager with you, or was Hager the year before?
Yep. Bryce Hager. Yep. That's my
he was
guy.
with you?
Yeah. Same year. And I actually saw Todd at the airport. I know you had a story about Todd at the
I did.
airport.
Yeah.
I saw Todd at the LA airport as well. Him and his partner, they were flying through, going on vacation. So it was good
the
to see him.
same experience. I guess you just, I don't know, life, death, taxes, and finding Todd Gurley at the airport like right before vacation. Like,
yeah, hey, he has to fly to get the bag. You know, whether he's going to relax or he's getting to the bag. It was cool to see him active and moving and grooving.
It was funny because I never want to be the person in public where like obviously Cam, we're friends, okay, but like just because I loved watching Cooper Kupp or whoever does not mean that I feel like I have the ability to go up and be like, oh, hey, Cooper, how's it going? Talking to him like he's my friend. Like we have never, talked like that. So like Todd, I actually did meet years ago at the Rams Giants game in 2017 and the 51-17 beatdown. And I did talk with him then, but I didn't think he'd remember me. And he came up to me. I was actually trying to avoid him, just give him a space, all that. We've talked about that before. Don't just go up to somebody, it's like, whatever. Yeah. So I'm going back home, getting ready to get back, before Thanksgiving. And I'm like kind of going around and Todd's like, oh, hey, it's like, all right. And then I had to ask him for a picture at the end. I was way too casual. I played it off like no fan. Yeah, we're like the same tier person. I was like, can I get a picture with you? And he's like, oh, of course, man.
Yeah. Todd, no, he's a good guy, man. Similar to the point where like, I was a rookie undrafted and Todd gets drafted, top 11. And like, we're like in the training room and we're watching ESPN and like he has a special on ESPN and like he's talking and I'm looking to the left and like, there's Todd, and like growing up in Georgia, he played at UGA and I played at Syracuse, but I kept track of all the UGA players because they didn't give me an offer. So I was like, okay, who are these guys? What does that look like? So it's really cool. Yeah. So a little beef there, but no big deal. But it was cool to see his maturation from UGA to playing at the Rams together. And so that was really cool. And then to see him in the airport. And so same thing for me, Jake, like, when it comes to my former teammates, sometimes depending on, of course, like what superstar status they have, kind of keep it chill. You know what I mean? Like even during the season, like Levante David and some of those guys, Mike Evans, I kind of keep it chill. And in the off season, I might jump in and say hello. But just seeing Todd at the airport, you know how at the airport where like they have the lines where they have a section off where you can grab your bin. And so I'm over there putting my bag in the bin, and then Todd, he's right behind me. He's right behind me about to put his bag in the bin. He's like, man, I thought that was Cam Lynch, but I didn't know, So I go and talk to my wife or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, there's Todd over there. And like his partner, hopefully I'm not, sharing his business too much, but she, she kind of overhears us and she's smiling. And then he comes out from getting his bag and then we all chop it up a little bit. But I don't like to do too much, you know what I mean? Like you mentioned, because you never know where people are in their life. But Todd does a great job. And me saying all that, Todd does a great job on the human side of separating the football part, the superstardom part, and being a good human. So I think at the end of the day, that might be our takeaway for people that are listening, Jake. You just be a good human, right? Show love.
Absolutely. And like to your point, and you always said this is their time. Like they earn this time. Yeah. Like if you go up and ask, that technically there's nothing wrong with that. I typically don't want to do that unless I like feel in the moment, like ahead of time, I'm like, okay, I will. But if they say no, and I think that's the thing, we live in a world where social media has become kind of like a gotcha, where it's like, oh, I got you on camera being a jerk. It's like, okay, well, what happened before the camera went rolling? You know what I'm saying? Like I saw the one with Shia LaBeouf. He's getting berated by people. Did you see that? Yeah. And he's just walking the street and you feel bad for him because, he's signing all these autographs and like and they're like, oh, you at least look like you're happy. And he's like, I'm not happy. Like I was just walking normally, listening and then there's people touching him. It's like, do not touch me, you know? And it's like that whole thing. So yeah, I wish, obviously most normal people aren't doing that, but people that are listening to this probably don't do that. So we're probably just talking to nobody, but hey, don't do that. It's that simple. Just let people. live.
Yeah, let people live. Yeah, it's and also too growing up in LA, like LA, you'll see like famous people walking down the street, or like Wiz Khalifa, for an example. We're at a pizza spot, Wiz Khalifa pops up and is a lowrider, and it's like living in LA and being around that. The goal is to not I won't say not be thirsty, but like just kind of keep it chill. You know what I mean? Because a lot of them
Yeah.
come and go, and they just want to be normal people. So it's tough to do sometimes. But hey, and also too, Jake, let's just get this straight. Actually, talking about Todd. Todd had Jay-Z come into our locker room, which was great. We love Jay-Z, go Hove, but if Beyonce walks, I don't say walks to the locker room, but if Beyonce is at the airport or we cross paths, I'm losing my shit. Excuse my language, but I'm losing my shit. That's just a different ball game. I know they have security and all this and all that, but all that LA cool guy stuff goes out the window. Like, I'm trying to get a picture of Beyonce, and I actually mentioned that Jay-Z was breaking down the huddle, and I kind of like turned my head like, yo, where's Beyonce? Like, where's she at? He got to look back like, yo, who said that? But yeah, man, it's, just going back to the whole Todd thing, man, just be a good human. He's a good human, and just play it cool.
There's always that one dude that, like, I mean, I would love to meet Matthew Stafford personally. Like,
Yeah.
I defended him when he was in Detroit, and I had his personal chef on this show. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so I would love to meet him someday. And probably, I'd say the other dude would probably be like Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters. I just think it would be so cool to meet him. I mean, I've met a lot of people that I want to meet at this point. So it'd just be like, I think Stafford, Dave Grohl, and I don't know, maybe like an actor like Tom Holland. I think that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
would you lose it if you saw them, or would you play it cool if you saw them?
I think I'd play it cool and lose it at the same time, because I try to keep it together, but I'd be like, well, Tom Holland I'd be okay with, like, whatever. I'd be like, oh, hey, what's up, Tom? Like, diehard Spider-Man fan, love what you did for the franchise. Could I get a picture? And he said no. Cool. Matthew Stafford, I don't think I'd lose it, because I already feel like I don't know him, but like I'm friends with, his personal chef, Chris. So I don't feel like I would lose it. Dave Grohl, I might lose it, man. Yeah. Especially if I was with my dad.
Your dad's, yeah. So just a little bit background. I mean, I'm sure people know your background, but your dad's a musician. So yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe someday, we'll cross that bridge when we cross it. But yeah, but like, to your point, totally understand the Beyonce thing, because like that's just the way. Sometimes you have those guys, they're like, all right, I can't even contain it. Like, right? Yeah. Like, it's just, it is what
pretty
it is.
Lady.
But
I mean, come on. My wife loves her too. Yeah, that's something that I would definitely, and then also too, right? Like, recipes if Kobe was still alive, like that's money right there.
Oh, Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge would, I would go crazy to see Aaron. I love Aaron Judge. I've been a fan of his since he came out of Fresno State. So he wasn't even an established MLB player. And I was just praying to God. The Yankees had 3 first-round picks, and I was like, just please pick Aaron Judge. That's how I felt. So I'd say Aaron Judge too.
Okay.
But
you used to live here in Tampa, so that could be a possibility one day.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll definitely see. But so you had your NFL experience, you had your work in social media, sports media, NFL Network, Super Bowl coverage, and then you've now just started a real estate business with your lovely wife Erin Neek, who I had a chance to meet. She's extremely nice. What has that been like?
Yeah, it's a lot. I would say planning a wedding is like starting a business. So that's when my wife and I, we got our first experience. Like, okay, how are we working together? What roles are we playing to get things done? She's an event planner. So imagine that, right? Doing events for a living, and then also planning your own wedding. So that was a real experience. And then also too, like having a meat company. She has an event company. So we worked with each other there. But starting this real estate business has been eye-opening. The note from that is anything that's good takes time. And so even closing on the property took about 6 months to happen because the sellers were going through some things. And right now we're currently getting renovations on the home. And so that's taking a process. And just to kind of give people background on how I got to the real estate space, my dad's into it. And he told me, he's like, son, like, you know, you're seeing with like all this NIL stuff, a lot of these players are buying the cars and the chains. But, you know, back in high school, middle school, he was like, yo, son, if you get a chance, get you some real estate. And that's my message to some of these college athletes. It's like, hey, get you some real estate, because at the end of the day, that asset can appreciate and you can refinance, you know what I mean? Get the money tax free and then go pour it into something else. And so that's how I've been able to start the real estate business, and listening to Pops and going down that path. But it's been good. Open to any tips and tricks. So people that are listening, if y'all have any real estate tips or advice, feel free to share it. You know what I mean? One of my goals is to be a lifelong learner. So, you know, not too proud to take a call and learn from some of the real estate professionals out there. Thankfully, I have a media professional right in front of me, is in Jake. So Jake, like you mentioned, just being inspired by what you do on the content side. You know, you're a true creator, you know, when it comes to the YouTube space, Instagram, you know, Twitter. So it's been really cool to learn in that sense. But like I said, new to the real estate space. So any tips and tricks, feel free to share.
First name that popped in my head is Maverick Bernard. He's one of my really good friends, basically like family. And he is in, I believe, the Daytona Beach area, and he's doing realtor stuff right now, and he's killing it. So yeah, that was the first name that popped in. I heard that. I was like, yeah, I was like, this dude, he grinds. He's probably one of the hardest workers I know. So
yeah, feel free to connect us, Jake. Feel free to connect us. I'm glad I mentioned that because feel free to connect us. We're not far, and whenever you come back to Florida, maybe we can all link up. That's cool. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I was trying to link up with him last time, but he was too busy.
Hey, get into the bag. It's all good. Respect.
Hey. Yeah, when we take our annual, because I imagine there's going to be an annual Florida trip, probably around, you know, Q1 of 2026. I always say that because it's like, you know, February, March, April, whenever. We'll definitely try and do something.
Cool. Yeah. And it'll be a tax write-off too. So it'll be real estate business. So hey, dinner on me, my guy.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So the last thing here, actually, there's two things real quick. One, you are hoping to start a family soon.
Yeah.
You've been married for almost 3 years now. Congratulations on that. I still remember when you got married and we were doing the show and you're like, like we'll have to figure things out. So that was great. But your anniversary is in September and you are hoping to start a family soon. How important is it? Because I mean, I'm somebody, at some point or another, I want to give, you know, my parents grandkids. I want to be a father. How important is it to you to be a father?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the legacy piece. It goes back to like the Brookwood Hall of Fame thing, right? It's like, it also goes back to being a good human. You know, at some point, like the seeds that we plant, you know, once they grow, the goal is for, you know, the legacy and for the children to eat off, you know, from that fruit. And the questions I'm sure that's going to be asked, like, what kind of person was Pops when he was at Brookwood? Or what kind of person was he when he was at Syracuse or St. Louis Rams, whatever that is? And so that's the goal, is just to plant those seeds, you know, water them. And then hopefully, you know, my kids are able to eat from them, to learn from them. And it's important legacy wise, of course, you know, want the name to live on. So at some point, you know, my kids, maybe your kids will podcast at one point and you're like, hey, our dads did this, you know, that's like the cool stuff that you want, and that I would want. And then, like you mentioned, for our parents to be grandparents, like that's really cool. You know, they're picking their names and stuff. Like my dad wants like Pop, you know what I mean? So for Father's Day, you know, we just, hey, happy Father's Day, Pop, you know what I mean? So it's just, it's cool stuff, cool things to lean on. And what I will say is, the person that you do pick to have children with, it's the biggest decision that you'll make in your life. I think Josh Allen mentioned that. He was like, I've made a lot of decisions, and getting married to his wife was the biggest decision that he'll have to make. And I totally agree. I think it's important to pick and choose who you want to suffer with and suffer for, because life isn't easy. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway is pick who you want to be in the trenches with. For you and I, like when we podcast, like we're in the trenches, we're figuring out concepts and ideas to share with people. And it's not easy. Going back to our Believe days, man, that shit was not easy. So, like I said, I'm grateful to have someone in the media space who knows what the hell they're doing, number one, and then number two, to be in the trenches with. So I'm grateful to you.
Hey, I'm grateful to you, man. Like I said, it's cool. I've had, obviously working relationships all throughout, my working career, whether it was, I think we were still, I don't know if we were doing content at the time. We might have been doing content when I was still working on my full-time job, or it might have been right after. Yeah. But man, I loved my boss. I had coworkers I loved, but I hated that job. And it helps you appreciate what you have more, I think, kind of going through the rungs there. So Cam, really appreciate your time, man. This has been a blast. Last thing I'll ask you here, you mentioned anime video games. Do you have one to recommend that I should check out or somebody else should check out?
Well, Jake, as from your Twitter, I know you list your top anime, so I know you're on the anime game. I know you're hip. I saw Solo Leveling was like the most watched anime of all time. Oh, yeah. So I know you've seen that. What I would suggest is, when's the last time have you seen Naruto? I'm sure you have.
I watched like episodes, like bits and pieces, not like a binge sesh, but when I was younger, I used to watch it on TV. Cam, it's weird that, and I mean, I never watch Yu-Gi-Oh again, but that and Yu-Gi-Oh are the two like shows that I watched. I know I watched. I remember watching. I don't remember a single thing about. I just remember Sasuke, Gaara, Naruto, and that is it. That is where the brain just does not remember anything about Naruto.
Okay. Well, we'll start. We'll keep it there. Keep it simple. Feel free to watch Naruto again. There's a lot of fillers in it, so kind of like One Piece. I'm kind of like this. Where you are with Naruto, I'm with the One Piece. I need to sit down and watch One Piece. I know there's a lot of fillers, a lot of time spent, but Naruto, man, like tears like will come down. I used to watch Naruto during training camp. You know what I mean? Because it would give me that right mindset. Like almost like the underdog. Like everybody's counting him out, but at one point, he wants to be the Hokage or the leader, and that's something I always kept in my heart. And so, great inspiration. I watched it twice. I watched it when I was playing, and then I watched it like last year, a year ago. And so Naruto, and then the spinoff with his son is Boruto. Those two, I highly suggest you watch those, my guy, because they'll evict some emotion, and it's well worth it.
They've been on the list, but it's funny. Everyone asks me like on the list of like ranking the anime, they're like, "Where's Naruto?" And it's like, I don't feel like I can rank that because I don't remember it. Like I remember some characters. I have every video game, although I haven't been able to get into the games either. You know how that was. You just buy a game and then you never play it again. It's just the way it is. But yeah, no, it's interesting. You know who else is a big Naruto fan?
Who is that?
The only reason I ever got into Naruto to begin with, Maverick, who I just told you about. He was the Naruto guy that I remember. So, probably he was way big into anime. I didn't get into anime until recently because I was like Dragon Ball, but recently I started actually been watching To Be Hero X is an interesting one you should check out.
Oh, okay.
It's
To Be Hero X.
Yeah, To Be Hero X, and then Dr. Stone blew my mind.
Okay.
Blew my mind.
I started Dr. Stone, but I didn't finish it. But I'll check those out. To Be Hero X.
You might have moments in Dr. Stone where you're like, all right, I think I'm going to take a break. But then it hits a certain point where you're like, I need to see the next episode. I need to know how they did that. Like what?
Okay.
And the idea that everything's turned to stone and this guy's basically trying to restart humanity in the Stone Age, it is just fascinating. All the different all the different science that's in there. It's not meant to go, and they say this multiple times, it's not meant to go and literally create that in your backyard or anything. But it is authentic. There's some dramatization, but it is somewhat authentic. And I appreciated what I would call the most original show, not even anime, the most original show I've ever seen in my life.
Dr. Stone. Okay. I'll give that another chance. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. That I would probably say that before. And I mean, To Be Hero X, it's 21 21-minute long episodes. And I mean, the thing is already, it's almost done in the first season. Dr. Stone, I think there's 3 seasons, and the 4th season, or there could be 4 seasons in the 5th season, but I think it's 4 seasons. The 4th season is coming out, or the part of the 4th season is coming out in July. So it's ending this year, that I know.
Okay, I'll check that out. 2BX and Dr. Stone. I appreciate that.
I got you, man. So that is going to do it. Guys, be sure to check out at Cameron Lynch 50 on social media. Also, you might be under at Cameron Lynch. I don't know which ones you're at there. You can follow me at JK Bogan on all social media. You can catch Cam and I on Bleacher Report sporadically throughout the NFL season, and maybe we'll work on some project together or something to get some more content out there. But that is going to do it. Cam, it is obviously something that I want to do for a while, is have you on this show. So I'm glad we're able to make this work. You're busy. I'm busy. We got it done, my guy. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys soon.
Much love.